Okay, students, now we will talk about the third and the final method, final step of the extraction of the metal, that is the basimerization reaction. Now, students, before starting, I have to tell you that at the end of the smelting, we get the molten matte. That is the combination of the cuprous sulfide and the ferrous sulfide. Now, let's move towards the definition of the basimerization. It is the further heating of the molten matte in the pear-shaped Bessemer converter. Now, students, basimerization is the reaction, is the process in which there is a heating of the molten matte, further heating of the molten matte in the Bessemer converter. So, students, the process in which we can further heat the cuprous sulfide and the ferrous sulfide, that is a molten matte, this process is known as basimerization reaction. So, students, just look at this. Here we will discuss about the detailed mechanism and the reaction. It is fixed on the pivot so that it can be tilted in any direction. Molten matte is fixed with the sand and heated with a hot blast of the air through the tubes, and the ferrous sulfide is oxidized to form the ferrous oxide, which reacts with the sand to form the slag again, and which floats on the top. Now, students, as you know, there is a heating of the cuprous sulfide and the ferrous sulfide takes place in the basimerization chamber, or you can say that the Bessemer converter. So what type of reactions takes place? Here we can deal first with the ferrous sulfide. Now, students, as you know that there is a further heating of the ferrous sulfide. Here the 2FeS, here 2FeS when reacts with the 3 moles of the oxygen. So, students, here the 2 oxygen when reacts with the 2 iron, basically 2Fe reacts with the 2 oxygen, it is converted into the ferrous oxide 2FeO, and the remaining 2 sulfur and the 4 oxygen reacts with each other to form the sulfur dioxide. Now, here this sulfur is the impurity, and we have to separate that by reacting with the oxygen, and it is converted into the volatile sulfur dioxide and remove out in a form of a gas. Now, student, what happens to the next with the ferrous oxide? Now, students, ferrous oxide reacts with the sand, that is a silicon dioxide, and here the Fe when reacts with FeO, ferrous oxide when reacts with the silicon dioxide, it is converted into the FeSiO3, that is the iron silicate slag. That slag is lighter in weight and move upward to the surface, and from the surface it is removed out from the inlet. Now, students, here we can resolve the issue of the ferrous sulfide. Now we can get rid of the iron and the sulfur as well. Now there is no longer presence of the iron and the sulfur. We have to remove it from the copper. Now what will be the next? On the other hand, the cuprous sulfide is oxidized to form the cuprous oxide, which again reacts with the remaining cuprous sulfide to form the metallic copper. Now, students, just look at this. Here this is a second one in the mat, that is a copper sulfide. Here 2 Cu2S copper sulfide when reacts with the 3 mole of the oxygen. Here the 4 copper when reacts with the 2 oxygen, it is converted into the cuprous oxide, that is 2Cu2O, and from there the sulfur, that is actually the impurity, and we have to remove that sulfur as an impurity from the copper, because we have to separate or isolate the copper from the sulfur. Now here the 2 sulfur when reacts with the 4 oxygen, it is converted into the volatile sulfur dioxide gas, and it can be easily removed out. Now, students, the one issue is that now here this is the formation of the cuprous oxide, but now that oxygen is the additional atom, we have to remove that oxygen to isolate only the desired metal, that is the copper. Now for that sake we have to react. Now, students, there are some amount of the cuprous sulfide that is not basically you can say that not reacted, is it remains. So the remaining cuprous sulfide that cannot be reacted will react with the cuprous oxide. Now when 2 Cu2O cuprous oxide when reacts with the Cu2S, that is a cuprous sulfide, here you can see that there are 4 copper and 2 from there. When these coppers combine, they form the 6 moles of the copper. Here we can separate the copper. Now what will be the happen to the oxygen and the sulfur, that are the impurities. Here the 2 oxygen when reacts with the sulfur, it is converted into the sulfur dioxide. Now students, you can clearly see that in all the process of the extraction, at the end we will get and isolate the desired metal. Now that, look at this here, this is a 6 copper, 6 moles of the copper basically is the isolation of the metal. Now that copper that is isolated or obtained from the process of the extraction is not in the pure form. For the purification we will move towards the next step, that is the refining.